So our lead this hour comes from Woke on Woke Crime. Draymond Green is under attack. I don't know if you saw this story or not. Perhaps you missed it, but let me give you the condensed version of events. So Draymond recently explained his opinion on the perceived gender pay gap in sports. Now, Green had a series of messages on social media. He implied that women must build their own platforms, which will in turn increase revenues and provide the salaries they desire. They want to be just like the guys. Now, Green went on to say that he was really tired of seeing female athletes complain about the lack of pay because they're doing themselves a disservice by just complaining. That was the gist of what Draymond said. Well, that statement, which seemed perfectly fine, well, it triggered women's soccer lunatic Megan Rapinoe, who went blitzkrieg on the Warrior star. Now, Rapinoe, outspoken about all issues here and delusional at the same time. She said Draymond Green's recent comments on women's sports and equal pay were, quote, frustrating. Quote, not acceptable at all. And then she went even further. She said, you obviously kind of showed your whole ass in not even understanding what we all talk about all the time, Rapinoe complained. You don't think we've asked for more funding? She moaned. What are we screaming about nonstop? She howled and sobbed to the media. So let us discuss the question. This is a game of patty cake here. Who's the winner of this high-stakes game of patty cake between Draymond Green and Megan Rapinoe? The battle of the woke stars. I'm going to take Draymond Green on this one. I got Draymond Green for the win. Now, my view on this, you've got friendly fire, breakfast cereal, and catwalk. And we will combine all of this together. Now, first of all, this is picking the lesser of two evils, but we are going to take Draymond Green, reading his comments and then the rebuttal. It is amusing. I think that's the right adjective. It's amusing that he's calling out women's athletes, women athletics, the women in sports for doing a disservice by just complaining. So what does Megan Rapinoe respond with? Complaining. She can't make this stuff up. I mean, she proved Draymond Green's point immediately. Oh, my goodness. Now, we do classify this as friendly fire because I believe Draymond Green and Megan Rapinoe are on the same side. They both have a seat on the woke wagon. Remember that Draymond is so woke, his sensibilities were damaged a couple years back by the people who own NBA teams being called, owners. So the NBA genuflected to Draymond Green and said, listen, we want to be woke. You're woke. So now the owners are called the Board of Governors in the NBA. Now, we're rebels. We still call people that own a business an owner of the business because that's what they are. But Draymond Green couldn't handle that. Now, secondly, in a blind side-by-side comparison, you don't have to be blind Emmett to see this. Megan Rapinoe is light years ahead of Draymond in being a basket case. And just based on what I've experienced, my opinion here, she lives in a parallel dimension, trapped by hallucinations of a different reality. And talk about brand ambassador, she needs to be the brand ambassador of a breakfast cereal because I got to tell you, Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs comes to mind here for Megan Rapinoe. Now, let's start spitting some facts out. I know facts always get in the way of these arguments, but we mentioned this a couple of weeks back. We did a MALLER monologue about this very topic. Some comments Rapinoe had made at the White House, how her voice was not being heard while she was speaking at the White House, the Joe Biden White House. No one was hearing her into a microphone, into a camera. But she, in particular, Rapinoe, continues to pout about it's not fair, right? The U.S. national women's team filed a lawsuit for equal pay in district court. As we've mentioned many times, the outcome of that was determined early on in the pandemic in 2020. So we weren't really paying attention. We had other things to worry about. But the U.S. national women's team filing that lawsuit, it was summarily dismissed. Why? Because it turned out that the U.S. national women's team was offered the same contract as the men's soccer players that they're so jealous of, but the ladies turned it down. Instead, they opted to be paid salaries with benefits over, pay per game. Right? They wanted a salary with benefits. They want the pay per game. Even more damaging, the court discovered upon looking at the financials that the female soccer players, Megan Rapinoe and her friends who have been screaming and shouting and having hissy fits that we're not getting paid enough. Oh, my God. Because of my lady parts, we're not getting paid enough. Well, the judge, a federal judge, determined that the women actually received more money than the male soccer players in both cumulative and on average per game basis. Let that settle in for a second. Payments to the female soccer players totaled $24 million approximately. They averaged $220,747 per game. The payments to the male players were $18 million, and that's total, gross, and they averaged $212,639 per game. So the women were getting over $8,000 more per game than the men. That's a 33% higher gross and 3.8% higher salary per game as opposed to the men for the women. So in favor of the women. Now, Rapinoe is following the time-tested theory. We all learned this either in high school or in college, that if you tell a lie big enough, and you keep repeating said lie over and over and over again, eventually there's a moment of bliss where people will come to believe the lie that you're telling. If you say it loud enough and you scream it enough and you pound the table, a certain percentage of people will buy it. And sure enough, we have a group of uneducated sheep who apparently didn't see that federal lawsuit getting tossed out about equal pay, the meat of it, who think it's criminal what's happening to these poor women soccer players, when in reality, they're actually getting more money. You can't make this stuff up. Now, final thought here. So we have pointed out many times in previous episodes, there's no grand conspiracy against whether it's women's soccer or the WNBA. It's a popularity contest, and they have come up short in the men on one side, the women on the other, and you as a consumer of sport, you're listening to a sports talk radio station right now, you have a choice to make. Do you watch the women? Do you watch the men? Do you watch both? But this is basic economics 101. The United States is a market economy. The market is the determining factor in the price point of what you get paid, right? The value of any product. You are the product when you're an athlete. You're selling your sport, your competition. You're the product. Corporate America, I promise you, the climate in corporate America that have become political activists, moving sporting events because they don't like the politics in certain places. Corporate America would invest a ton of money if they thought they would have a return on investment. But that's not the case. The interest just isn't there. And that's what Draymond Green was saying. So why would you sink money into it? There's lesser value in that. Now, to demonstrate how this is not sexism, this is just market economy. Look no further than the catwalk. If you look at the modeling business, the big-time modeling business, male models get paid considerably less than their female counterparts. Right? What's up with that? I thought men always get paid more than women. Well, in the modeling business, there was a study done not that long ago that showed that male models earn only 1/4 of what female models doing the same job make. Same thing goes in the adult entertainment world. The female performers get a lot more money than the male performers. I hear a lot of dudes complaining it's not fair. There's a gender pay gap here. Women are making more. How dare you on the catwalk make more than the men? But there's a great Mark Twain quote that applies to this conversation. It was one of the all-time greats. He said, "Never argue with stupid people, because they will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. And we have a lot of that going on these days. So again, just to recap, Megan Rapinoe's upset with Draymond Green, proving Draymond correct by doing the exact thing Draymond was saying you shouldn't do as her rebuttal, and she continues to pound the table saying, we're not getting paid enough. It's unfair, when a federal judge already determined the female soccer players are getting more on a per game and a gross overall amount of money than the men. So put that in your pipe and